Before we go any further, it's a good time to talk about collision layers. Collision layers define what can interact with what in the game. And if we do them at this stage and get them right, it can save us a lot of complication and a lot of extra work later. So it's a little bit of a chore, but it shouldn't take too long. And as I say, it should speed up the final process of making our game. So I've got all my scenes open. I've got my player scene and each of my block scenes open there. In fact, I think I'm going to close down block 1 and block 2 because they inherit from block. Save. And save. All right. Let's set it up and then we'll talk about it. So if we go into project settings and we want 2D physics, look, here it already is. But if you want to find it, you scroll down to layer names, 2D physics, that's what we want. And we want a bunch of layer names. First one is player. Second one is world. Third one is hazards. Fourth one is enemies. Fifth one is props. Sixth one is collectibles. So we only have player and world at the moment. We've got our player and our blocks, but let's do it all so it'll be ready for when we build these extra features later. Close that down into my player scene. Now, if you go into collision in the inspector, so you got your inspector here, expand collision, you've got two sections, layer and mask. The layer is who you are, okay? So we're okay here because we are the player and the player is selected. The mask is who you can interact with. So we don't want to interact with ourselves, but we do want to interact with the world, the hazards, the enemies, and the collectibles. Save that. Okay. Into our block scene. We are not the player, so let's get rid of that. We're part of the world. But we want to be able to interact with the player and we want to be able to interact with not the hazards, but definitely the enemies. So if the enemies bump into a wall, they want to stop and not go straight through it. So we need to be able to interact with the player and the enemies. So that looks good. I'm part of the world. I can interact with the player and the enemies. Save that. And I'm going to open my other two blocks. So I'm going to open block 1. And there's block 1. Notice it hasn't inherited from the main scene. So let's just correct that. So I'm the world. I can interact with the player and the enemies. Save that. Close it down. Block 2. Again, it hasn't. I wonder why that is. So I'm part of the world and I can interact with the player and the enemies. Save that. Okay, now it's time to start building our world.